Testing 1 2, testing 1 2.
All right, good evening everyone and welcome. My name is Ben Shell, I'm a representative from the Purdue Pork Interest Group. Our Pork Interest Group has the objectives of supporting the pork industry and increasing the experiences of Purdue students within the pork industry, thus informing and preparing them as well. Last fall, during our large career fair, over 200 people and 20 companies attended. Next fall's date is October 6th. In the spring, the Pork Interest Group holds 1 or 2 meetings in which an issue or new technology is discussed. And tonight, we will hear about one of the new vaccines for PED. In the past, new technologies included ractopamine, dried distillers grains, antibiotic alternatives have been discussed. Tonight's discussion is not an endorsement of a product, but an opportunity to be informed and to create some interaction amongst current Purdue students and pork industry people. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Kara Stewart, who will discuss past, future, and current activities here at Purdue relating to the PED virus.
Hi, welcome. So I just wanted to spend a couple minutes chatting a little bit about the role that Purdue Extension has been playing recently in helping to facilitate some information dissemination is really what we've been doing, as well as providing some veterinary guidance on dealing with the PED virus. So in the fall of 2014, Purdue with Extension and many other contributors put together a conference down in Danville, Indiana, just to kind of cover this topic and provide information down to the producer level to help us all be able to manage what was going on. So there was a lot of input here from on campus, and I'm sure this list is not as inclusive as it should be, but we worked really closely with our extension folks out in the counties, as well as the Indiana swine veterinarians, the Board of Animal Health, the National Swine Registry, et cetera, to kind of put together a day where we could talk about managing this disease. In that process, we created a website. So you can see it here at the top. It's the PurduePED.info website. And we have provided all of the information from that conference to the website. So you can visit the website now and review and see all of the different presenters' talks that they gave that day and review that information. There's also links on there. There's a PED links blog there or site there that you can go see and link directly to the Indiana Board of Animal Health and the AASV and the National Pork Board to get all kinds of up-to-date information on biosecurity and number of cases throughout our state and the country and things. And then we've started a blog. So it's actually kind of more of a regulated blog. So there's a couple of us that try to review what articles actually get posted onto the blog for as accurate as we can do in our quick reviews to provide the newest science into a blog that comes through different popular press articles and news releases and things that are coming out. As they come out, we'll kind of add those to the blog. Going forward then, we are working on some podcasts that will be put up in the next week or so. We have about 3 of the 7 or 8 recorded to date, but what we're doing is revisiting all of the speakers that provided us some information at the fall conference and kind of getting an update on how the winter of 2015 fared for PED from all the different groups that contributed. So we will be providing those podcast updates as we continue to interview our speakers. And going forward, as new information comes about, we plan to continually provide podcasts regularly with some more up-to-date information. So if you weren't an attendee at the conference in the fall, but you'd like to be notified when we put some new information up there or when we put on some new events here at Purdue, on the main page of the PurduePED.info webpage, you can just submit your name and email and you'll get onto our listserv. And then anytime we provide some new information, you can receive warning that it's there. So going forward, again, we intend to maintain and keep up this website, and we hope for it to become a location where you can go to get the most current information about this virus and managing it and link to all the necessary information. So we'll continue to maintain that and create podcasts as we see fit. And then we have the same kind of task force that got together to work out the details for the conference in the fall. Is going to continue to hopefully provide some health-related information and conferences. So we're working on a more generalized swine health conference for 2016, which will be a producer level. Hopefully we'll have a couple tracks in there to cover kind of show pig and youth, as well as commercial production and managing different diseases. So I'm not a veterinarian, but I hope that we can help here in Extension and Animal Science to bring our Indiana state veterinarians and maybe multi-state veterinarians together to get the best information out there to producers and the public. So that's where Purdue is at in helping to facilitate some of this information. That's it for me.
And at this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Daryl Ragland, one of the associate veterinarians here at Purdue University.
Good evening. Well, I was asked to provide an update as far as PED, where we've been, and also give some comments as far as where or what we might be looking at down the road as far as this particular disease. And so, okay, so I mean, you all are familiar with this virus and the impact that it's had on the country, not just the state. Killed a lot of pigs. The estimates are anywhere between 8 and 9 million pigs dead as a result of this virus. We're talking about primarily nursing pigs, neonatal pigs, pigs still on the sow. Certainly, the longer these pigs live, the more likely they are to survive. But if affected, certainly within the first week of life, the outcome is usually not very good. So we got a virus that kind of like its relative TGE. Certainly is lethal to younger pigs, but certainly older pigs aren't spared. This is the image of a sow that had a pretty profuse diarrhea, and this is what's typical in an outbreak. Just very loose stools, animals scouring, vomiting, becoming dehydrated, and certainly gets to be something of a health challenge. So this is a chart that was taken off of the ASV website, and it goes all the way back to April of 2013 when the first case was diagnosed, and it takes us up through what was just last week. So this is the number of weekly sessions that were being reported by the 3 diagnostic labs, Iowa State, Minnesota, and Purdue. And so I think you can appreciate that if you look back at January of 2014 and work your way across the chart, that we had what amounted to a peak in cases that happened in February and March of last year, and we've fallen off precipitously as far as number of diagnosed cases. So we get out here to February of 2015, and we're more than half or less than half of the number of cases that were diagnosed almost a year ago. So that's something of an improvement as far as PED is concerned, and the number of pigs and farms being affected. The red on the graph, I hope you can see it. This area here, at June of last year, the USDA decided that they were going to intervene and make this what is a reportable disease. And as a result, we have this red area is the number of farms that are in the USDA system as a result of the USDA reporting program. So they have some terminology that's associated with positives and presumed positives, and if you want more information as far as that's concerned, you can go on their website. It's laid out pretty clearly as far as how these classifications work. So that's national. If we get down to what's happening around the state, so out of 92 counties, we had positives reported for 66 out of 92. Out of those 66, 43 were positive for SECD, or swine enteric corona disease virus. So that also includes diagnoses for this porcine delta coronavirus, which in the absence of PED alone seems to have come on over the course of this past winter. There were more diagnoses, or the number of diagnoses of swine delta coronavirus certainly seemed to increase. So the relative percentages are laid out. 66% of those 43 counties were PED only, 11% were porcine delta coronavirus only, and then 23% were a combination of PED and delta coronavirus diagnoses. That amounted to an average of 3 PED diagnoses per week and 1 for swine delta coronavirus. Premises. Okay, so we had 265 positive premises reported in Indiana, and 93 were positive for, 265 premises that reported results, and 93 were positive for swine enteric coronavirus. And of those 93, the percentages are 77% were PED, 10% were swine delta coronavirus, and then 13 were a combination of the two. So these reports come from the bulletin that's put out by BOA, and they described this is based on USDA classification, and in the decreasing order, wean to finish, sow or breeding herds, nursery, and finishers were the sites that were most often affected, with wean to finish being having the highest number of cases. Now, of course, I tried to find what they meant by wean to finish, and I do not have a working definition for what a wean to finish site is, according to the USDA, because it, based on reports that we were getting for this past winter, most folks were describing finishers being affected. So, what this means by wean to finish, I still need to try and figure that out. Okay, so what have we learned so far? Well, we're dealing with an RNA virus, and because RNA viruses are able to mutate, we now know that we have 3 variants of this virus that's circulating on farms, and so we had the original that was diagnosed, the initial diagnosis. Then shortly after that, in February of last year, Iowa State reported that there was another variation of this virus, and then there was some research done at the University of Minnesota where they reported that they had, based on sequencing, genetic sequencing, that there was another variant of this virus. So we now have three variants of this PED virus that we need to be concerned about. What the impact is going to be as far as immunity and things like that, how well vaccines work, and that sort of thing, we really don't know as of yet. So I wanted to come back to this chart, and again reiterate about the this peak here and this drop. And so how do we get there? Well, as far as I'm concerned, there's a couple of things that account for that overall improvement or decrease in the number of cases. First and foremost, we talk about trying to raise immunity on these farms. We've got to come to grips with the fact that feedback is going to be one of those things that's a tool, certainly, but it's one of those that we can't get around as far as having to utilize to try and build immunity. The understanding clearly is that where we're dealing with the virus here, we've got to be able to put the live virus into an animal, get some replication, and then that animal will then start to build some immunity. In this case, what we know is lactogenic immunity. So the intestinal system has its own immune system. We have these specialized cells, the M cells, Peyer's patches. Antigen gets processed, and as it's being processed, we get then an immune response that results in secretory IgA being produced in the milk, and then the sow is able to confer some immunity to the pig. And so this is necessary. The vaccines certainly are a tool, but it seems that this is a necessary component if we're trying to build immunity in these herds. We have to have that feedback or live virus inoculation. The other thing that we've come to find out about this virus is that we have some pretty good disinfectants at our disposal, and one of those is this product, Axcel. It is a hydrogen peroxide-based disinfectant. That's not to say that this is the only disinfectant that works, because the bottom line is if folks are doing a good enough job of cleaning these facilities before they apply disinfectant and knocking down the amount of organic matter, then just about any of these disinfectants will do a good job. But this one in particular, we know that it works in the face of organic matter and obviously works very well. And so it's one that where we get into or have some particular challenges as far as being able to properly clean and disinfect these facilities. This is certainly another very, very good tool to have as far as that's concerned. The other thing that we know is that this virus got moved around because of transports, and so understand very clearly that there is a need to do as good a job as one can as far as cleaning and disinfecting these trailers, especially after they've been to a packing plant and before they go back to a farm. And so again, in addition to the regular cleaning and disinfection, the understanding clearly is that where we have access to these facilities to heat these trailers, bake these trailers, at a temperature of 160 degrees seems to make a difference as far as being able to kill this virus. And so certainly we know a lot more about properly cleaning, disinfecting, transport equipment as well. And people. I mean, folks either going into farms or, for that matter, people who are working on the farms and moving around certainly can pose something of a risk when you have something that looks like that on one's shoes. And the amount of virus that these pigs are churning out, it is very easy to then be able to move it. Whether you're coming from the outside in or you're already on the farm and moving around. And so, again, biosecurity has certainly contributed, or a better understanding of what we need to be doing as far as biosecurity has certainly contributed to at least being able to help get this disease under control. And so that's certainly another area that we certainly covered a bit of ground in. And then we've got things like we know that this virus can be detected in air. Okay, so I'm not going to stand here and say that we've got a virus that aerosolizes and moves like say PERS, but there have been some work where they've demonstrated they've been able to recover this virus from air samples. But when they go on to do bioassays where they take those samples and then expose them to pigs, the pigs don't break with disease. And so there's a bit more that we have to learn as far as that's concerned. But at least right now, this virus doesn't seem to be a virus that we have to be concerned about, say like PERS and what amounts to a virus that aerosolizes and spreads with some efficiency. As far as the future, well, there's some discussion that we've got these farms. We've gone through the process of improving the overall immunity on these farms, and as we lose some of these sows that are carrying that immunity, that these farms are not necessarily going to be naive, but they're going to be susceptible again. And so, again, that whole thing of where possible, maintaining feedback, continuing to vaccinate to try and maintain some acceptable level of immunity is certainly going to be important going forward. So I would certainly hope that next year, next winter, we'll be coming out of or we won't be coming out of next winter having had a big blow up with PED again, but it certainly seems possible. Certainly seems like the virus isn't going anywhere too quickly, but that's why continued vigilance as far as promoting immunity in the herds and doing those things relative to biosecurity that makes a difference is going to help us be a bit more prepared come next winter when this virus might try to flare up again. That is all I have, and thank you very much. Any questions?
There's 3 strains. Could you summarize what the difference is between the 3 strains
Differences between the 3 strains?
of the PED?
No, I can't. We have a virologist in the room that can probably do a better job of that than I could.
He's sitting next to me.
Well, what we know is so far that PEDv is a strain cross-react. Question is, can they cross-protect? That's still to be answered. And there's limited data published on that at this moment.
Any other questions?
Hi, very briefly, my name is Angie Moss, and I am a senior here at Purdue in Animal Sciences, and my concentration is pre-veterinary medicine. Up next, we have Mr. Joel Harris. Mr. Harris oversees all of the daily operations at Harris Vaccines and negotiates licensing agreements and manages investor relations. He has served as the head of sales and marketing since 2012. Mr. Harris earned his bachelor's degree in economics with concentrations in international trade and entrepreneurship at the University of Iowa in 2008. He recently completed the post-baccalaureate certificate program in narrative communications from Northwestern University.
You're going to play the, yeah.
One company creates herd-specific custom vaccines more quickly and more safely than any other. One company led the way in creating and licensing a vaccine for porcine epidemic diarrhea and in developing strain-specific vaccines for swine influenza and rotavirus. That company is Harris Vaccines. Founded in 2005, Harris Vaccines is a global leader in animal vaccine technology, specializing in swine, other livestock, horses, and aquaculture animals. Breakthrough developments in advanced molecular science are a regular occurrence here at Harris Vaccines, thanks mainly to our Siravax RNA particle technology, which results in faster and safer herd-specific vaccines. Harris Vaccines' USDA licensed production facility for veterinary vaccines is located in Iowa State University's Research Park. One of the world's foremost authorities on infectious diseases in swine, Dr. Hank Harris discovered the cause of swine dysentery in the 1970s and has been involved with animal vaccine research and livestock production ever since. In the late 1980s, he pioneered the concept of multiple site swine production, a practice now used widely all over the world. Here's Mark Mogler, PhD, our head of research since January 2013. Dr. Mogler directs the development of new products, assists in troubleshooting scientific and production issues, and was essential in the development of our USDA-approved vaccine for porcine epidemic diarrhea virus. Jody French is our head of manufacturing and regulatory affairs. Jody is responsible for implementation of processes required for vaccine production using Harris Vaccines' Siravax technology. She also initiates and manages USDA correspondence regarding both product and facility licensure and leads all regulatory interactions. Joel Harris has been working alongside his father and leading our sales and marketing efforts since 2008. In addition to overseeing these operations, Joel negotiates licensing agreements and manages investor relations. So what sets Harris Vaccines apart? It's the way we approach vaccine production. Typical production techniques involve a modified live or killed virus, but our Siravax RNA particle technology takes specific pathogen genes, isolated from an infected animal, to create an RNA particle vaccine in a matter of weeks. The most common diseases that affect swine production are caused by viral and bacterial pathogens. Each pathogen has a protein or set of proteins that, if targeted by the immune system, will help protect against disease. Those proteins are made up of a genetic sequence that is unique to every virus or bacteria, and at Harris Vaccines we refer to those as genes of interest, GOI. Every one of our herd-specific vaccines goes through similar steps. Using an oral fluid kit, a sample is collected from the infected animal and sent to a diagnostic lab where the viral strain's gene of interest is identified and sent electronically to Harris Vaccines. Because this electronic gene sequence identifies the virus strain specific to a particular farm, no live virus ever enters our production facilities. This maximizes safety and biosecurity. After receiving the gene sequence, we synthesize the gene and insert it synthetically into our RNA production platform. In a matter of weeks, RNA particles can be produced and formulated into doses for use as a herd-specific vaccine. Because multiple genes of interest from multiple pathogens can be included in a multivalent vaccine, we can provide broad protection against multiple diseases like PEDv, swine influenza, and rotavirus. We add no adjuvants to the RNA particles because the particles themselves act as an adjuvant. The RNA particles, or RPs, look like viruses on the outside, but on the inside just carry the GOI of the pathogen we are targeting. After injection, the RPs target the dendritic cells of the sow, which are involved in stimulating both humoral and cellular immunity. Because of significant safety measures utilized by the technology, each RP enters one cell in the animal and then produces the protein encoded by the gene of interest. The immune system of the animal recognizes the protein and develops a protective response against the real pathogen. RPs do not spread from vaccinated animals into other hosts, which provides another safety measure. Let's look at how RNA particles compare to killed virus vaccines and modified live virus, MLV, vaccines. The illustration on the left depicts a killed virus vaccine. The middle is an MLV vaccine, and on the right is an RNA particle vaccine. When injected into the animal, all three vaccines will have a broad interaction with the cells surrounding the injection site. Killed and MLV vaccines begin to stimulate a wide range of immunity to components of the pathogen that are not specific in stimulating protection. RP vaccines are focused and targeted only to the GOI. Occasionally, adjuvants included in killed virus vaccines can cause unwanted injection site reactions. This is not the case with our RP vaccines. MLV vaccines induce immune responses to a large number of viral antigens, even those that are non-protective. This makes it difficult to differentiate infected from vaccinated animals. There is also a risk that MLV vaccines will spread between animals in a herd and possibly cause disease if they mutate into a pathogenic form. Because RP vaccines are self-limiting and targeted, there is no unnecessary interfering of other proteins generated from non-protective antigens of the pathogen. RP vaccines are also DIVA compliant, meaning we can differentiate between infected and vaccinated animals. This feature is a major benefit in any eradication program against a costly disease. Our Siravax RNA technology has also demonstrated that there is no interference from anti-vector immunity, which is a limitation of other new vaccine technologies. An animal can be vaccinated multiple times against several diseases using RPs and not see reduced efficacy of the vaccine, making them an excellent tool for herd health management. Finally, the major differential is the rapid response to newly emerging or mutating pathogens. While conventional vaccine production methods can take months or even years, our process takes about 4 weeks and allows producers to target diseases quickly, efficiently, and more accurately. As head of research Dr. Mark Mogler puts it, our rapid response technology often means the difference between profit and loss for producers. It also allows us to keep up with quickly mutating viruses and ensure protection. Our technique is particularly important when you consider that foreign animal diseases are a continuous threat to the United States. Their ongoing introduction and mutation makes our rapid response technology crucial to animal health worldwide. Let's look at some of the major livestock diseases Harris Vaccines is combating. Porcine epidemic diarrhea virus, or PEDv, entered the U.S. in April 2013 and caused the deaths of millions of piglets, costing the pork industry and consumers hundreds of millions of dollars. The virus causes vomiting and diarrhea in older animals and is fatal to nearly 100% of piglets less than a week old. Just weeks after the first confirmed cases of PEDv, Harris Vaccines had produced candidate vaccines for evaluation. In August 2013, the first generation PEDv vaccine was made available by veterinary prescription. A second generation PEDv vaccine was introduced in early 2014. That product subsequently became the first vaccine in the United States to receive a USDA conditional license. Rapid response is nothing new for Harris Vaccines. In 2009, we were the first to produce strain-specific vaccines for pandemic H1N1, the swine influenza virus. Because the swine influenza virus mutates so rapidly, most pork producers have a difficult time vaccinating against it. Fortunately, our technology lets us target multiple genes of interest from multiple pathogens that can be included in a multivalent vaccine. Rotavirus C, another cause of diarrhea and mortality in piglets, is a difficult virus to grow in laboratory settings. While this is an obstacle for traditional vaccine producers, it is not for Harris Vaccines. We don't require a live virus for production, which is why we were one of the first companies to receive a rotavirus C autogenous USDA vaccine license using our Siravax technology. Finally, porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome virus is a devastating swine disease that costs U.S. pork producers more than $700 million a year. This virus mutates rapidly and suppresses the immune response of both sows and piglets, making it difficult to eliminate by traditional methods. But once again, our unique technology lets us deliver targeted vaccines for the PERS virus. The bottom line is this: Harris Vaccines has revolutionized vaccine production. By developing herd or region-specific vaccines in just 4 weeks, we are outpacing traditional companies by months. In a world where diseases evolve and viruses mutate continuously, we're making sure that producers can protect their animals' health in a timely manner with strain-specific vaccines. Our products are DIVA compliant, which simply means that they're designed to differentiate between infected and vaccinated animals. And because we've eliminated adjuvants, our vaccines do not cause injection site reactions. One company, revolutionizing vaccine technology, changing the way the industry looks at vaccine production, and leading the way in animal health. Led by Dr. Hank Harris and his team of brilliant scientific minds, Harris Vaccines will safely deliver rapid responding vaccine solutions for ever-changing and mutating viruses worldwide.
All right. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today about Harris Vaccines and some of the developments we've made in our PED vaccine. So like the video highlights, really Harris Vaccines technology is not just a disruptive technology, but a disruptive business model in trying to provide herd-specific or region-specific vaccines as rapidly as possible. So another review, so the RNA particle technology, it's a propagative defective single cycle, and the USDA has classified this as a non-living vector. So a lot of times we get confused as killed virus or some sort of inactivated virus vaccine, and that's really not the case because we were just using a single component of the virus that we're targeting. So in the case of PED, it's the spike gene. In the case of influenza, it's the HA gene, and so there's no other viral components in our vaccine. The vector itself is derived from Venezuelan equine encephalitis virus. It's actually an attenuated vaccine strain developed by the US government, and so it's a non-select agent viral vector. And as far as we know, we're the only company that are commercializing this type of alpha virus technology for veterinary applications. Just some other traits to the RNA particles themselves. They have a high expression level. There have been studies showing that, that we're able to target the dendritic cells, which is good for stimulating an immune response, and we get a broad immune response in covering innate, humoral, and cellular immunity. Another interesting aspect is that we don't have an anti-vector immunity, so the animal doesn't generate an immunity to the particles themselves. This is kind of a problem with other new vector technologies like adenovirus vectors, and so we like to differentiate ourselves from that. So this is a list of some of the other diseases we're currently commercializing and working on. Of course, PED, influenza, rotavirus are mentioned already. We do have some limited work in PRRS and also Clostridium difficile and Clostridium perfringens and swine dysentery. We are also working on some of the foreign animal diseases that were mentioned in the video, including foot and mouth disease in cattle and swine, African swine fever, and classical swine fever. But so far, all these listed diseases, we have products for and available in the U.S., either through prescription or USDA approved. So this is just another breakdown of the technology platform. It's a true platform technology, meaning that every vaccine is made the exact same way. All we do is change out the initial gene insert, and the process is the same the whole way through. So whether it's the spike gene for PED manufacturing, the HA gene for influenza, VP7 for rotavirus, once that is put into the cassette, the whole system runs very smoothly, and we're able to crank out a vaccine in about 4 to 6 weeks. And that's from the time that we get the diagnostic lab report from the veterinarian to vaccine being delivered to the farm. So we've already talked a little bit about PED coming into the U.S. in 2013. At that time, we were able to get a genetic sequence of the spike gene from GeneBank and started producing candidate vaccines and testing those in our own facilities. So the key issues we were looking at as we started to develop this was we wanted to look at potential candidates that could possibly cross-protect between the apparent multiple strains of PED that are out there. And we had questions about what the duration of immunity would be in use of the vaccine versus feedback or other live exposure. And then also this apparent persistent high mortality or recurring outbreaks in chronic farms. So we were very rapid to take this challenge on and start pretty much immediately as soon as PED was confirmed in the U.S., we started producing vaccines. Again, this is the timeline. PED enters the U.S. around April, May of 2013. In August of 2013, we had the first generation vaccine made available via vet prescription. So in about 4 to 5 months, we had the first product out in the market. About 4 months later, we released a second generation product, which instead of only taking a small segment of the spike gene, we now include the entire spike gene in the vaccine. And that is what subsequently led to getting our USDA conditional approval in June of 2014. We're now conducting several efficacy trials, both in several different scenarios, a naive pregnant pregnant sow study, a previously exposed gilt study, and then also a growing pig study. And all these will be made an application for our full license of the PED vaccine. So the first trial I'll run through quickly was conducted in our own facilities, and it's a naive sow suckling pig challenge model. So in this study, and I'll show the data in the next slide, the animals were able to develop virus-neutralizing antibodies, and that's to the spike glycoprotein. And then we were able to differentiate infected from vaccinated animals. And so here's the naive sow vaccine trial. So we were able to show in multiple trials consistent reduction in piglet mortality from the vaccinated animals, or the naive dams. And this study is being repeated in larger numbers, and again will be submitted to the USDA for full licensure. So this is the smaller study where we had 10 sows. We did 4 control and 6 vaccinated, and then the piglets from those animals were challenged at about 5 days of age. And so you can see that in the placebo animals, there's a quickly increasing mortality or decreasing survival. And this was also supported then by histopath and other metrics to confirm that PED was causing the mortality. So like I said, this is being repeated right now in a larger number of animals. It is interesting, though. I mean, the majority of our vaccine sales is actually for previously exposed systems or farms that are chronic and going 10 to 20 weeks of consistent high mortality. So a lot of the field data that we get back is herds that have had some exposure to PED. And what we do see pretty consistently throughout different geographies is that the vaccine boosts virus-neutralizing antibody levels. Again, I'm not a veterinarian or PhD or researcher, and I know that there's a lot more work to be done to know what that neutralizing antibody level needs to be, but it does seem that our vaccine is enhancing that level significantly. This is just a testimonial from a customer of ours at Cargill from last fall that they had used the vaccine in the fall of last year, and he noted that the product so far has helped in having more piglets survive. This is actual production data from a large customer of ours in Iowa. It has about 150,000 sows. This is comprising about 18 farms that you can see very clearly that when the PED outbreak happened in this system, so this is the average pre-weaning mortality across all those farms. And so this is pretty typical of what we see in similar outbreak scenarios where you have 10 weeks or 3 weeks of really high pre-weaning mortality. That's starting to taper off, but you still get this significantly higher than the pre-outbreak level of pre-weaning mortality. And it was at this time that they decided to start using the vaccine about 10 weeks after the outbreak. And they still do a feedback protocol with the gilts and then follow it up with a booster of our vaccine about 7 to 10 days pre-farrow. If you look at the 8 most chronic farms in this system, which we categorized as having greater than 30% pre-weaning mortality 10 weeks after the initial outbreak, you can see that about 5 weeks after the 7 to 10 day pre-farrowing protocol, a significant decrease and almost normalization continuing on. This customer had started vaccinating toward the end of 2013 and has to this day not rebroke with PED. And again, is in Iowa, which I'm sure you're aware is a pretty high dense area. This is another field data presented at the Swine Disease Conference in Ames, Iowa last year. This was another customer of ours, and we did not solicit to have this study done, but they presented use in about 5 herds in a dense area in Missouri. And I'll just run through some of the data. It looks very similar to the data we collected from our Iowa customer, where you have the significant increase in pre-weaning mortality, then the drop, and then this kind of chronic area. So in about, I think it was 16 of the farms, and this is again all aggregated, they decided to start vaccinating in 5 of them, and you can see on the time line when that vaccination started. About 3 weeks later, in the unvaccinated farms, they started to see significant increase in pre-weaning mortality, and then management just decided to end the trial and vaccinate all the animals, or all the farms that were in this system. And so you can see a continual normalization back to pre-outbreak pre-weaning mortality levels. This is the same data, just broken out by the different farms. And it's subsequently to this, they were also to see a decrease of isolation of PED in the environment, either through sampling different parts of the barn, different parts of the production facilities. So where we are today on this, we feel very confident that we're getting a desired immune response from the vaccine, especially in previously exposed animals. We are still working on what that level needs to be in naive herds and whether to recommend use as this vaccine as a prophylactic vaccine. We definitely have some customers that are doing that, but it does seem to be more beneficial in previously exposed animals. The safety profile of our technology is very, very clean cut and desirable. I think the fact that we're not using the whole PED virus doesn't really put us in the same camp as modified live vaccines that maybe are developed. And then we haven't, with the millions of doses that have been out there, we haven't seen any reversion of virulence or recombination. We also are prepared, and because we're able to swap out the genes rapidly when Delta coronavirus was confirmed and the second isolate of PED and now this indel version, we have replicated those spike genes specific to those different pathogens and have put those into candidate vaccines. But we just don't see a huge demand for, say, a swine Delta coronavirus vaccine. You seem to have significant spikes in pre-weaning mortality, but they tend to normalize, or at least that's the feedback we're getting from customers. And again, this is DIVA compatible with some of the diagnostic testing that's done out of the University of Minnesota, and that's also consistent with a lot of our other vaccines that we develop. So, really why we do what we do, we feel that these newly emerging strains or constantly mutating viruses pose a real risk to the ag economy, and that traditional vaccines aren't capable to combat these in a timely manner. And so that's why we're promoting this as also a way to tackle foreign animal diseases and potentially change the paradigm that instead of traditional stockpiles, a more rapid response approach may be more beneficial. And we do this using the alphavirus replicon or RNA particle technology and create customized, custom-tailored herd-specific vaccines. And just want to, again, thank you for allowing me to talk to you this evening, and also Purdue University and Iowa State University, where we're spun out, and appreciate any questions you guys have.
Yeah, Joel, thanks for the presentation. On your full licensure, I don't know whether you can tell us or not. Do you have to show efficacy in the naive animals to get full licensure?
I'm not sure exactly what the bar is. I could follow that up with more detail, but we do know we have to conduct some sort of full efficacy trial to get that claim. So to get the claim for use in naive herds, then yeah, I think you would have to have some bar level of protection, but I don't know what that is.
I guess what I was asking is, can you get a claim licensure only for previously exposed herds? Is that possible?
Oh yeah, we think we could. And why we have these 3 trials going is to ensure that we just get a full license as quickly as possible.
To vaccinate an unexposed gilt, does it require 2 injections and then 1 each time afterwards she farrows?
Yeah, so the current recommendation in naive sows or naive gilts is actually 2 doses 3 weeks apart, and then as a mass vaccination or to get them acclimated, and then you would get them on a pre-farrowing booster shot as well. So that is the route we're going for that recommendation. And in previously exposed animals, it's just as long as they're gone through an outbreak or you're exposing them to feedback, then it's just a single booster injection 7 to 10 days pre-farrow.
So in order to induce protective immunity in animals, it will require introduction and expression of multiple proteins because protective epitope located on multiple genes of the virus, PRRS, influenza, PEDv, and also important folding of the protein in order for T and B cells recognize this. So I just don't quite understand the mechanism behind if you only express 1 gene from a virus, how do you induce broad and cross protective immunity in these animals?
Right, so for some of the more complex diseases that we work on, like foot and mouth disease and PRRS, we're still looking at, well, and PRRS is a whole different story, obviously. But for foot and mouth disease, we can construct gene sequences that will do that protein folding in the animal. And the other aspect of that is we can include multiple RNA particles into a single dose. So if you have 5 influenza strains circulating in your system, we can make an RNA particle for each one of those strains and combine that into a single shot. I don't know if I have enough scientific background to answer your question fully, but I'd love to get you in touch with our head of research, who's really the guru on that side. Thank you.
Okay, and up next we have Dr. Max Rodabaugh. He graduated from Purdue University College of Veterinary Medicine in 1977. He founded Swine Health Services in Frankfort, Indiana, and since 1980 he has been specializing in swine veterinary practice only. Swine Health Services is one of the first practices in the United States that was dedicated to swine practice only. Dr. Rodabaugh has served as president of the American Association of Swine Veterinarians, and he has presented the keynote Howard Dunn Memorial Lecture at that annual meeting. He was also selected in 2001 as the Swine Practitioner of the Year.
Thank you, Angie. And it's a pleasure to be here this evening and visit with you. When Dr. Schinkel called me I said I would be, or not, he didn't call, I guess email. I said I'd be glad to participate, but he didn't tell me it was going to be a webinar. So next time I'm going to negotiate for a makeup artist, because I know with my receding hairline, there's going to be a pretty good glare here this evening. So, so what I'm going to do is give you a little update about what we're seeing in our practice and our experience, particularly with the Harris vaccine. And maybe some that Joel will like and some he may not like, but our ends are not very big. We don't have very many experiences with challenge, so that's the good news. And then also I'm going to just a little bit on immunology, not very much, but just so we can talk anyway, and then kind of what's been going on in our practice in the past year with PED. Since the bad year, anyway. You know, when we're at an institution of higher learning, of course, and there's always lots and lots of questions that are generated, and usually research generates more questions. And you can, I probably would just, I have enough questions being in the field, let alone being on a university campus. So I probably would just go completely nuts. But you know, other people have questions too, and so I found these on the internet, questions that haunt people, and this one is, why do we press harder on a remote control when we know the batteries are going dead? So there's people that need to study that too. And so if I start punching hard on this tonight, you'll know either I don't know how to operate it, which is true of my remote control at home, actually. I think my 1-year-old grandson knows more about it than I do. So I also thought of one of my own on this, you know, why? Because I deal with people in farms that don't speak English very well. I notice that I talk louder thinking they might understand my English. Now, why do we do that? I don't know. Okay, this is what's happened in our practice in the last year. So in the bad year, the first year, of course, lots of herds. We had 20 sow herds, and I don't even know the number of grow finish sites. I mean, I didn't even try to count those up. But just every week, more and more, it seemed like from May of 13 until May of 14. And then we were feeling pretty good because we had not had a single new sow herd since May 17th of 2014 until, well, that's not quite true. I think we had one in January, and then we had not had any more until the first week of March, and then had a couple sow herds break. So from May 14, 2014 until present, we've had 3 sow herds, and then one of those is a reinfection, and that's the one I'm going to talk about that was vaccinated. And they broke on March 17th. And we've had 11 grow finish sites. We're using vaccine in about 15 sites that were and only in previously infected. And that's the only place that we have used any vaccine. Dr. Ragland talked about this some, and just a way to look at it graphically of what's going on in Indiana. And Indiana Board of Health Animal Health is doing a great job of summarizing what's going on in Indiana. So if you haven't got on their website or aren't on their mailing list, well, you can do that and really see what's happening. And you can see this is just simply positive accessions for PED and by week. And you can see there was a little uptick. There has been a little uptick in Indiana here recently. So we have seen a few more cases, just like I think that graph showed on the national. And then the other one that we look at quite a bit is the University of Minnesota's Swine Health Monitoring Project, which is an excellent summary in a specified number of herds or specific herds that are reporting each week both PRRS and PED cases. There's about 2 million sows in this database, and you can see that, see, I need to press a little harder. So this is what's happening just recently. Obviously, this is the big uptick, like you saw on the total national graph. And Minnesota's these 2 million sows, they've seen a little uptick above kind of the epidemic line, which is the red line defined there. 7 new cases week of March 18th, and 2 new cases March 25th to 4-1. And this is just that same area that is just enlarged a little bit. So again, not nearly as bad as the previous year, but everybody's seeing just a few increases here in the last few weeks, it looks like. This is that next question, which you might have already seen. And this one pertains to all of us. What disease did cured ham actually have? I think we could answer that one, couldn't we? Okay, just quick immunology. You have to bear with me just because these are terms that I think are important. but they're not going to be too technical. So passive lactogenic immunity, so that's just what we would say milk antibodies or milk immunity. So these are antibodies in the milk that are available to the baby pig, and these are not permanent, so that's why they're called passive. So once that baby pig drinks the milk, those antibodies that he gets from the sow's milk, whether they're absorbed into the bloodstream early on, or whether they're just in the gut, are passive. They're not going to stay around. So that's, when we talk about milk antibody, that's really critical in some of these enteric diseases. And then the second one, secretory IgA. So the secretory antibody is called IgA, for those of you that don't know. That's just the dominant antibody that's in milk, and especially after natural exposure to an enteric virus, you're going to have some secretory IgA antibody, and that's really the one we want for protection. It's a little more resistant to breakdown, and it's going to last in the gut a little longer and neutralize the damaging antigens. And it's there on the surface of the GI tract. So that's just, I think, important to be aware of, and I'm going to talk just a little bit more about that. Oops, there we go. This is just some terminology from Linda Safe over at Ohio State, and some pretty neat stuff that's been around for a while that she worked with TGE on, and other people have worked on and described this gut, mammary, secretory IgA axis. It sounds like a war or something, doesn't it? But so let's just say if you get exposure to PED, and this was what Dr. Regland kind of showed graphically. So you have immune cells from the gut, and these cells actually traffic or carry immunity to distant sites like the spleen. So they'll be in the spleen. Those cells will be in the spleen. And then under the influence of pregnancy, and I don't think Dr. Regland mentioned this, but under the influence of pregnancy, these hormones will help those cells return back to the mammary gland to produce that secretory antibody so that it can really work in that baby pig as it drinks the milk, so it can work against antigens that sow has been previously exposed to. So a pretty neat process that's been laid out, at least for TGE. Hasn't really been proven that this happens necessarily with PED, but we would certainly expect it to, and I think Linda Safe, that's done some of that research, would expect that to happen. So it's kind of important to understand that's kind of how the immunity works, and that's what's important when we're stimulating immunity. And that's also why we think that vaccines like Harris vaccine or other killed vaccines will help in terms of boosting up antibody on sows that have been previously exposed. So I'm going to say that inactivated vaccines can enhance that secretory antibody, believe it or not. So it can stimulate those cells that are in the spleen and help to carry those, and then those cells will be carried to the milk or to the mammary glands, and you'll have increased levels of secretory antibody in previously exposed sows. Okay, so you can put inactivated, or I should say your RP. I know we do struggle with what to call the Harris vaccine. So, but I saw that Joel has RP. Is that right? RP? RP? Okay, a non-living vaccine. All right. So. So that'd be the Harris vaccine, of course, or we believe that the Zoetis vaccine, which is a true killed a whole cell vaccine, would also do the same thing, is what we would expect. And we felt like this was actually true. This is what we used to experience with TGE vaccine. We would not vaccinate naive herds, but we would use some vaccine in previously exposed herds because we felt like it would boost them up and do some good for us. So I'm going to give you just kind of our experience in some endemic herds, and actually we had 5 to 6 herds after those 20 or so that got infected that we just, no matter what we did, we just couldn't seem to get them cleaned up. Our herds are smaller than a lot of the herds that were infected. These herds were smaller. I think probably the larger the herd, the more likely it is to become endemic. You just got more chances for things not to work right. More places to clean. But in any event, we had 5 or 6 herds. We just were having trouble getting cleaned up. So we go back and we re-emphasize all the sanitation, wash the sows, keep everything clean, disinfect the hallways every day, all the things that we did the first time we had PED. And then we decided to implement the Harris vaccine in 7 to 10 days prior to farrowing in those herds, because the guys were feeling like they had done everything possible and we're still having trouble. So we thought it was worth a try. And so we did in those 5 or 6 herds. I can't remember how many for sure. I don't know how many for sure. Interestingly, all but 2 of those improved prior to the time that the vaccinated sows even fed. So that just told us that, you know, sanitation still works. It's important, and if you re-emphasize it in some herds anyway, that'll work. Now, those farms did keep vaccinating, but they actually cleared up prior to the time that the vaccinated sows fed. One sow herd, however, and again, this was one of our larger ones that was endemic, a 3,200 sow herd, was infected May 17th. This was the last sow herd that we had before this year's infection. And we were really struggling there, and I had been in, and we just felt like we were getting about everything done or that we could in terms of sanitation. So we implemented the vaccine 7 days prior to farrowing, and that was approximately September 1st. So you can see that they were infected May 17th. We were still having trouble almost 4 months later. And this is the results, which were really dramatic, I thought, and really, this data is kind of summarized by month. So this was May's data. So we weaned 2.4 pigs per sow. Prior to that, we were a little above 9 and 13, 14% mortality. And the PED, of course, nailed us pretty good. And then after PED, we kind of bounced back and didn't do too bad in terms of numbers, but the thing is that doesn't even tell the true story, because there's a lot of scouring, a lot of diarrhea, poor pigs and lightweight pigs at weaning, and just wasn't working very good. And then obviously jumped up 30% here. So we initiated, this is September, and we initiated it right around the 1st of September, and we just saw a dramatic improvement in the way those pigs looked, and obviously the numbers bear that out too. The mortality went way down and weaning back normal, and it was really to the farrowing room. So we were pretty impressed. We were pretty happy with that result, and felt like it was as a result of the vaccine giving us that added immunity. It stimulated that secretory IgA and really did help us in that situation. This is oh, I forgot to say I was going to tell you this. This is just a little field trial that we did. This was really before we started. Well, we'd already used quite a bit of the vaccine, but we were trying to decide whether we wanted to continue to use vaccine. We just were curious as to what it would do in one of our herds that had been previously infected. So we proposed a little trial to use both Harris and Zoetis vaccines and then measure antibody, okay? The only antibody that we can readily measure is a blood antibody. So we understand that that's not the best in terms of really knowing whether those baby pigs are going to be protected. But in any event, we thought it was worth seeing what would happen in a herd that had been infected. And so we put together a little project, and this was funded by some funds through Indiana Board of Animal Health, and actually which were federal funds, I think mostly, that helped pay for getting this testing done. And get some information out to kind of see what the vaccines that were available at that time might do. So this was an 800 sow, fair to finish herd, so not a good scenario for trying to break PED, because every age of pig was on site, and there's some other stories about this herd, but I'm just going to tell you about what we were seeing in terms of the vaccine trial. So their initial break was February 27th, and then we started collecting blood and vaccinated in October of 2014. So we bled and vaccinated 30 sows. Within 6 weeks of farrowing, we did the sows. 15 were given Zoetis vaccine, and 15 were given Harris vaccine. And then we left 10 gilts that we didn't do anything to, and also 15 open gilts we did both vaccines. We left 10 we didn't do anything to, just to make sure that we didn't have a natural exposure that we weren't aware of that made antibody levels go up during that 14-day period. We rebled them in 14 days, and these were tested on just the FFN assay, which is a neutralization assay, just measures that antibody from South Dakota State. We held the serum and bled, and then tested them all on the same day. And here's those results. So the two testing periods, the blue would be at the time we vaccinated, and then the red is after vaccination. So these were the non-vaccinated gilts, so you can see that they didn't have much antibody. So this is, they were infected in February, we were testing in October, so they have no measurable blood antibody at that point to speak of. which is kind of interesting. Doesn't mean they don't have any immunity, remember. We got some immunity stored up in the spleen, so and elsewhere. So that told us that our response on the other animals would not have been due to any exposure. Then the Harris vaccine gilts, you can see, again, most of them were negative. These were open gilts, by the way, and post 2 weeks later, a nice jump in geometric mean titer. And the Zoetis, again, negative, and also an increase. Numerically, I don't know that we can make anything of this, but the Harris vaccine does have a nicer antibody response in the blood, okay? And then the sows, almost a similar response. They were negative by this assay pre-vaccination. When we vaccinated them, we definitely stimulated up antibody. Again, we were hoping this is a proxy for the secretory antibody that was going to be ended up in the gut. We can't prove that, but I know that Harris has done some work with showing that they do stimulate IgA, which is that antibody that we think is important, of course, in the gut, by a vaccination of previously exposed sows. So, in any event, showed a nice response. We can't say from this at all that one vaccine is better than the other. I mean, it always feels good to have a better response, but we can't say that necessarily it's better. We did check with South Dakota, and they said there's no reason that their test would selectively look better on the Harris vaccine versus the Zoetis. So anyway, that was our little trial. We felt like that at least the vaccines would stimulate antibody, and we were hoping that that would translate to protection in the face of challenge. Now, you know, when you're doing this in the field, a lot of things can happen, and the next case may be one of those. But you have to just try to make your best judgment as to what's working for you and kind of go with it. So anyway, that's kind of our little trial on the two vaccines that we tested there. Okay, this is going to talk about just something that's just happened. And this is our only break in a sow herd that was boosted with Harris vaccine. So it's a herd that was infected last year, and then we vaccinated, and they did get re-exposure. So you know, that we're happy that we haven't got. Well, let me back up. This is one experience. I'll say that we're happy that we haven't got others. And I think that the fact that we vaccinated the other herds is not the reason we didn't get PED in those herds. Now, there may be some that would disagree with me, but I think if we got PED in any of those herds that we vaccinated in, we would know it. So in any event, this is our only experience in a vaccinated herd. So this is a 1,600 sow breed to wean. They had infection February 18th of 2014, and they had no clinical evidence of PED anywhere in the herd. It's a breed to wean, so and then we had not seen in the nursery pigs either any signs that PED had remained endemic in that herd. We had enough virus saved through intestinal tracts that we exposed our gilt development through about the 1st of April. And then we ran out, so we didn't have a plan for after that, so we stopped. We didn't have anything to expose the replacement gilts to. We started administering all sows, including gilts, and there would have been some gilts, of course, that would never have seen field virus. We gave them all one dose. We knew that the one dose in the gilts wouldn't do any good, actually, but they didn't want to try to sort them out, so they just went ahead and gave everything one dose. And that was approximately 7 days pre-farrowing. March 17th, they started to develop some clinical diarrhea in some of the sows in gestation. And that same day then, they had some diarrhea that had been occurring in one of the farrowing rooms. Actually, the week before they checked it, and we did not get any PED out of it. But that day, both the sow feces and the baby pig swabs were positive for PED. So right or wrong, what we did, we thought, well, the sows that are due in the next couple of weeks, most of the pigs are going to, be heavily exposed if we do natural feedback. So we just kind of, some of them we just, or we did not go ahead and naturally expose them intentionally. The ones that were doing the 2-week period, we vaccinated them again and did intentional natural exposure to the entire rest of the herd. And these are our results so far, and this is very early, I would say. So we don't know how it's all going to end up because this was the week we broke. So during that week, our pre-weaning loss was about 16.5%. This is the number of litters that ferret. Or no, I'm sorry, this is the number of litters that were weaned, because this is weaning. And they weaned several head that first week. They weaned some young pigs down to about 12 days. We didn't want to, normally we may wean even earlier, but we thought, well, we're vaccinated, we'll try to keep those sows lactating as long as we can, because we know we can have problems breeding if we wean them off early. So the next week, the sows were weaned, we had 38% loss, the next week 60%, and last week 72%. So Joel's probably not too happy with those numbers, and I'm not either. So we said, well, maybe it's a parity thing, because we knew that our parity 1 and parity 2, about half of the parity 2 sows would not have previously seen virus. So I broke it down by parity, and unfortunately it doesn't look a whole lot better. Gilts, 62%, and this is the full 3 weeks that I had summarized before. And then 53% and 50% on our P2s and P3 and older. As you can see, unfortunately, we have a lot of young females in that herd. So looking back on it, probably, to give that herd, if we'd have been thinking a little bit here recently on what we were doing recently, we probably should have at least tried a second dose on all those young animals, but we weren't, I guess we weren't thinking. So here's my analysis or comments so far. We're early in that break. And as I mentioned, we have a higher percentage of gilts and P1s that would not have previously seen virus. It's a great lesson in affected litters, so these gilts and P1s that have high virus levels of just so much virus that it's probably overpowering any antibody that is extra, that's higher on those sows. And so I think, you could say, well, we should have just euthanized those, but our problem was, in this case, not knowing whether we were going to have much success. We didn't want to go ahead and do that in those young litters. We did try just switching some litters, so we put gilt litters on sow litters. We weaned the sow litters off and put gilt litters on those. Initially, the farm thought it was doing well, but I think, again, with just so much virus around, they haven't fared that well even on that, and we didn't have enough sow litters to really do a lot of that in. And then we don't really know, the time since our initial break till the time that this herd got infected, whether the natural exposure to those sows, whether we can boost it up as well with a single dose of vaccine, we don't really know. We know that antibody in the blood will go down, but we don't know about long-term immunity, I don't think, with PED in terms of re-exposure. So anyway, that's our experience. It's not a very good one so far. It may. I think what will happen is we'll be able to come out of it a little better in this herd, since we've been vaccinating, and we'll probably continue to use vaccine to try to work out of it, hopefully a little faster. So that's kind of our story there, so I think we believe that the vaccines have a place. We don't. I'll say it right out. We don't think that there would be any sense in vaccinating naive animals at this point. If that's all I had, I can't see any reason to. And this kind of would support that too, even though we didn't give them 2 doses. But the data looks interesting that Harris has generated, but I think there's also a lot of questions in terms of how that translates in the field when we got massive doses of viruses in these herds that really wouldn't have great gut level immunity from double vaccination of any inactivated or RP vaccine. Well, I always have noticed that Max is the name of a lot of dogs, and in the December USA Today, they confirmed that at least that year Max was, for the male dogs, was at the list of the most popular, and so I have now a question that haunts me, and that's what compels people to name their dog Max? So, thanks for your attention. Any questions?
So just to make sure I have this right, so of the sow farms that you serve, very few had a confirmed break or rise of PED in the environment to really evaluate.
Right, we
the
only had
vaccine.
this one herd that we're vaccinating that broke, okay? And then my point is, I don't think because, I know that Joel would like me to say that because we vaccinated, then we didn't get it in those other herds. I don't believe that's true. I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think that's true. I think our thought process was, we'll do everything possible to enhance immunity in those previously exposed sow herds in the event they get exposure. But I think if they get exposure, and also because, and every herd's different, and also because we know in those herds we also would have gilts or young females that we did not have field exposure in. So we're going to know it if we get it in there. Now maybe if we had enough material or maintained material to re-expose all our gilts, which some farms are doing, maybe the story would be a little different.
So what do you think are the main contributors to the number of PED cases this year being much less than
Right,
last
yeah, that's a
year?
good question. A lot of people have been asking that question. I think it's probably several factors. One would be just obviously awareness and better biosecurity, more truck washes, more trucks being washed, everybody's more aware. So that has to be, with a virus like this, that has to be a lot of it, okay? I really think that the recognition of the feed component is huge. Now that's my opinion, others would disagree, but that would be both from the ingredient side and the potential for cross-contamination. I think we all recognize now that we've got to watch that closer. Birds coming into feed mills, whatever it be, may be. So I think that's why we have less. I don't think it's because we've had all these infections. I don't think that really would help stop it from spreading, because all summer we had cases show up in grow finish, now and then. So the virus is around, it's still here. So I don't think we know, but everybody has been asking that question.
Okay, I have another one. Can I keep going? So if you kind of had a crystal ball and you could look into the future, do you think that, maybe we were benefited a little bit this year by high immunity from all the farms that were exposed last year, and that, what do you see for next year? Do you think we're going to have another impact year like 2013, 14, or?
Well, that's the thing we don't know about PED is like in this herd, whether that immunity actually is down enough that we can't boost it back up with vaccine. So that's the part we don't know. I think if other herds, which probably there are a lot of herds that have not been able to continually re-expose gilts, so that's going to, before long, we will have another population that's highly susceptible. So then it's going to just depend on how good our biosecurity is, I believe. Yeah, whether we really have improved it enough to really stop spread once the populations, I think the populations will tend to become more susceptible over time, yes, if that's part of what you're asking. Which means we could have another year where it could be bad. I don't think it'll ever be probably quite as bad as it was in this first round, 2013, just because of the awareness on biosecurity and all of that. So I don't think we'll see that. Hope we don't.
Just curious, Max, can the vaccines be used to extend live material?
Can they be used to extend?
Can you reduce the exposure to live material to save live material? In other words, you ran out of live material, but can you use the vaccine in conjunction? How much live material does it take to be effective?
Right. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, I think I see what you mean. So use less live material and the vaccine to try to simulate immunity. It probably depends on that live material, on how you have stored it, which is going to be critical. We had some we just kept in regular freezers and then used it, and it did not even hardly cause clinical signs in some replacement gilts. So that's one little problem. As far as I would assume that if you can show that you've exposed them, whether that be by following up with blood tests, that the vaccine could be used then as a tool to boost them up. So I don't know that I don't know what the numbers would be, but I think the key is probably how you store that material and how you're going to keep generating it. How do you want to generate that? You'd have to have a process to continue to generate material to feedback. And you're going to want to be careful about that, of course.
Do you know of a group that's actively researching what levels of immunity need to be met in order to prevent symptoms?
There's all kinds of stuff being done on immunity and research. I don't know that we know that question, or I don't know who's working on that, but I'm sure people are looking at that as something we need to learn. That's one of those questions we need to ask on PED, and there are a lot of them, but yeah. Yep.
I'm interested in your data on new outbreak in your sow herd. Did you look into virus spike protein? Is it similar what is in vaccine spike proteins that you use, or is it any difference? That's one question. And the second question, what was the level of IgA and FFN tests that you previously demonstrated in these sows in that before break, of course? What level of immunity in those sows before they broke?
In the last herd I was giving you history on,
Correct.
we had not gone in and blood tested them or checked them in any way, so we don't know that. We don't know that question. The answer to that question, yeah.
Right. And what about the spike proteins?
As far as sequencing it, then
Correct.
we have not sequenced that. And that's a good point. That would have been another reason maybe the vaccine didn't work as well as we'd like, is if it's a variant virus or something like that. We did not sequence that virus. Okay. I would say clinically it looks like the classical syndrome. It doesn't look like a milder virus. I would say that. We haven't done a lot of sequencing. We only sequenced one, and it was matched with the original virus. And that was a new case this year.
So what is the number one recommendation that you give to producers when you come on their farm about PED for going forward?
Well, I think it has to be biosecurity. You're probably not surprised at that, but just look at every possible way that we can move virus into the herd, or avoid moving virus into the herd would be a better way to say that. And certainly the first wave taught us that there were a lot of ways that it could get moved that we had not thought of.
You're still having grow-finish barns break. Is it perhaps that the people with sow herds realize the biggest and highest alert for biosecurity, and maybe not quite the biosecurity with the grow-finish, or?
Yeah, that'd be one. No, that could be certainly one. The other would be you have more slaughter trucks coming in to grow-finish sites, and some grow-finish sites are continuous flow, some are not. So you have a lot more. You have more manure handling equipment coming into those sites. So there could be a lot of reasons that we would see that. Yeah. It looks like the virus is not having any trouble persisting in the pig environment. I mean, it's around. I'm sure it's at delivery points and collection points and those types of things. So,
are we beyond the point of eradication discussions, or does that even
it depends on who you talk to. Okay, yeah. I don't know how to answer that. I don't think it's real near term, but certainly, I mean, when you look at the number of cases, even though we're discouraged by the fact that we've got a new case, it's a lot less than it was last year. So so I don't know whether we're ready for it quite yet, but I would never say never. Yeah, I know some are saying 2016 we need to start. So. Any others? Well, it's about 8 o'clock.
All right, and with that, I would just like to thank everyone for coming, and a special thanks to all of our speakers, Dr. Stewart and Dr. Ragland, as well as Mr. Harris and Dr. Rodabaugh. Thanks everyone for coming, and Also, a special thanks to Dr. Radcliffe and Mr. Phil Reed for doing all of the sound and video to make the webinar possible. And thanks to all of our listeners online as well.